Welcome to NTD News, I'm Paul Graney. Here today's top stories. A 19th century mansion in Massachusetts was destroyed today after it caught fire while the owners were away. The New Year's Eve ball is back with a new design and over 2,600 crystal triangles. Kazakhstan has suspended all Beck Air flights after a crash killed 12 people. Dozens more were taken to the hospital with injuries. And after strong holiday sales, UPS predicts a record-breaking number of gift returns. A fire engulfed a historic Massachusetts mansion today, likely leaving the 19th century home in ruin. Flames shot from the attic and sent smoke billowing into the sky. They could also be seen bursting through windows and doors. Crews from several fire departments responded to the blaze in Concord, Massachusetts around 10:30 a.m. Additional firefighters even had to bring in more water to help put out the flames. The damage was so severe the whole 6,500 square foot home is likely destroyed. Local officials say no one was hurt and that the homeowners were not at home at the time. Records show the mansion was built in 1897 and was valued at just under $3 million. 4 more days to go until New Year's Eve, and the famous crystal ball has arrived in Times Square.
The famous New Year's Eve crystal ball arrived in Times Square Friday morning. This year it features a new design, symbolic of the gift of goodwill.
For the good in situations, look for the good in people, look for the good in everything around us.
The design includes 3 pineapples, which Brennan says is a symbol of hospitality dating back to colonial times. This year, 192 of the crystal triangles with the pineapple designs will be used in the famous ball.
By our designers and sculptors.
The crystals are sculpted by craftsmen across Europe. More than 1 million people are expected to watch the countdown here in Times Square on New Year's Eve.
They're joined again by over 1 billion people from all across the globe who will see us doing this, kissing and celebrating and hugging each other. That's an amazing moment. And I hope the rest of 2020 just continues along that line.
The New Year's Eve ball is 12 feet in diameter and weighs 5.5 tons. It will be covered with almost 2,700 crystal triangles and illuminated by colorful LEDs for a kaleidoscope effect.
The event is one of the largest in the world, which means the NYPD is busy preparing.
For many people, this is the New Year's Eve party. Next Tuesday, more than 1 million people are expected to pack into Times Square for the countdown to 2020 and the iconic crystal ball dropping. The New York City Police Department says so far that there have not been any credible threats to the event or New York in general. The cops will have multiple layers of protection to keep the crowd safe. Thousands of police officers will be present. Officers are assigned at every hotel within the Times Square area. Also on duty will be the city's K-9 unit, trained to detect explosive materials. Despite the hard work required to safeguard the event, the department's new commissioner is happy to be a part of it.
So many times I've gone there and felt the cold in my bones 3 days later. But there's nothing like being out there when that ball comes down and it's everything New York, right?
Just like years before, spectators will be screened before entering the square. Backpacks, large bags, umbrellas, and alcoholic beverages are not allowed. Penny Joe, NTD News, New York.
Prosecutors in Los Angeles are reviewing 8 cases accusing disgraced film mogul Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault. More than a dozen people were injured after an explosion in Wichita, Kansas today. The explosion happened at an aircraft manufacturing plant. Emergency crews said they were called to the Beechcraft plant just after 8 a.m. local time. The Wichita Fire Department said the explosion occurred after a nitrogen gas line ruptured. There were no immediate reports of fatalities, but by early afternoon, 3 victims were found to be seriously hurt, while 1 was in critical condition. The cause of the blast is now under investigation. UPS expects a record number of holiday gift returns on what shipping companies are calling National Returns Day.
Shipping companies are preparing for millions of people to return all those Christmas gifts they didn't like. January 2nd could be the biggest day ever for holiday gift returns. UPS expects a record 1.9 million packages to be returned next Thursday. That's a 26% increase from 1 year earlier. And that prediction is just for UPS. It doesn't include packages sent through the U.S. Postal Service or FedEx. UPS expects a high volume of packages on January 2nd because it's the first workday of the new year. Several shipping companies now call it National Returns Day.
Winter is just a week old, but it's starting to make a mark, especially on the West Coast. Snow and flood watches could wreak havoc on holiday travel.
Rough weather along parts of the West Coast.
Once we got here, we started seeing the little snow start coming in. Boom, stop.
And those wintry conditions are expected to crawl across the Central Plains and Upper Midwest over the weekend. The National Weather Service says a strong low-pressure system is bringing heavy rains to Southern California. Residents that live near the Easy Fire burn scar near Los Angeles have been getting ready for flooding.
If there's any areas tend to get sort of waterlogged, you can make sure that there's channels out. With arenas in particular, that's something you really want to prep.
Some parts of Southern California are already seeing heavy snow. The California Highway Patrol had to shut down the Interstate 15 freeway Thursday due to snowy and icy conditions.
It was coming down pretty bad, and all of a sudden this freeway stopped.
Winter storm watches are posted in eastern Colorado, eastern Wyoming, Kansas, and Nebraska. Forecasters say snowfall totals could reach 18 inches across the Dakotas and northern Minnesota through Monday. Forecasters say this could cause headaches for holiday travelers, especially in LA, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, and San Francisco.
As for the East Coast, temperatures in front of this system are likely to stay between 10 and 30 degrees warmer than average. This is through the start of the week, but once the cold front passes, temperatures are expected to return to normal levels for this time of year. Following a fatal crash today, Kazakhstan's aviation committee has suspended all flights by airline Dyker. It also grounded all Fokker 100 planes. A flight safety analyst shares his views on the impending investigation.
A necessary precaution at Almaty Airport. All Dyker flights have been canceled. A Fokker 100 aircraft operated by the local airline crashed earlier on Friday. All Fokker 100 airjets have also been grounded.
Firstly, on behalf of the government of Kazakhstan, I would like to express condolence to the families of the victims.
The ministry said it is investigating a possible breach of flight operation and safety rules as per standard legal procedure.
Kazakhstan's Civil Aviation Committee suspends all Dyker flights until all the circumstances are clarified.
The chief executive of a UK flight safety committee said on Friday it was too early to determine the cause of the crash.
There's no reason to suggest that the regulatory oversight is a problem or that this particular operator had been cutting corners. Say it's very, very early to make that sort of call.
The flight safety expert said that speaking to flight crew would be an important part of the investigation.
Clearly, those will be key witnesses for any inquiry. If indeed they've survived the impact. So they'll be looking to find out from cabin crew, for example, people with experience.
The plane was carrying 5 crew members. Kazakhstan's Interior Ministry said the captain was among those killed. The plane was carrying 93 passengers. At least 12 people were killed. Almaty healthcare authorities said 66 were taken to the hospital, with some of them in serious condition.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu won a landslide victory in his run to head up his Likud party yesterday. He will now be the party's leader when Israel holds a national election in March.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has won a vote to remain at the helm of the Likud party. It's a boost for the embattled leader ahead of what is likely to be a hard-fought general election in March, the third in less than a year. A Likud tally gave Netanyahu over 72% of the votes in Thursday's ballot, against 27% for challenger Gideon Sa'ar. The battle with Sa'ar had added to pressure on the 4-term premier. Netanyahu is under indictment and fighting for political survival. In November, he was charged with corruption in 3 criminal cases, and he has twice failed to form a government in the wake of 2 inconclusive national ballots. Netanyahu's centrist rival in those elections, Benny Gantz of the Blue and White Party, was also unable to form a coalition government. That led to political deadlock, and a third election was announced for next March.
And coming up next, Hong Kong's financial center status remains intact despite ongoing protests. An expert says the city has several features that make it hard to replace.
special for us.
Bring your family, let your children experience this.
I know my daughter just loves it. When the curtain first opened, I looked out at her face and she was amazed by what she saw.
It's great for the whole family.
And I have a granddaughter. I want her to see something like this because it'll probably enrich her soul and her development as a person. It would change her life.
It's hard for kids to listen to parents all the time, but when they hear it from an outside influence as well, reinforcing your values, that's great.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And her birthday was Friday, so we surprised her with tickets.
I was just so amazed. They're amazing, amazing dancers.
The girls are so elegant and beautiful, and the colors are amazing.
It's just amazing. It's truly breathtaking. Just the story. There's a story behind everything as well, which is amazing. There's so much culture.
It's a bridge between meditation and peace and where we are now in our busy lives.
As an adult and a teacher, it's awesome to see kids reacting and having that positive reaction to the show.
I will see it next year and year after that and the year after that. It is just incredible, absolutely beautiful.
I wish I could see it again, like right now.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Credit rating agency Fitch says Hong Kong's global financial center status remains intact. This despite 6 months of pro-democracy protests in the city. NTD's Penny Zhou has more.
Hong Kong has fallen into its first recession in a decade. Ongoing protests in the semi-autonomous Chinese territory have taken a toll on its tourism and retail sales. While the US-China trade war has also weakened its trade standing.
Local firms' confidence over exports has dropped to 18.8, the lowest level on record.
But Fitch Rating, one of the world's big three credit rating agencies, says Hong Kong's status as the third best global financial center remains intact. Economist Kevin Xu said the city's financial role is hard to replace because it has a unique combination of factors that make it a darling for investors. They include the free flow of capital, its common law system, and most importantly, the rule of law.
Till now, still, Hong Kong is a city in which capital inflow and outflow is no restriction. It's relatively easy to ship in money and then ship out money. But then that's not quite true in China.
He says that's why China's hope to have a mainland city like Shanghai to replace Hong Kong as a financial center is unlikely to come true.
Over time, if anything, over the past year or so, it's become more and more restrictive in terms of you want to take money outside China. Investors, if they know that if you invest and make money, it's hard for you to get money out. That's not something they attract them to invest in the place. So.
The second factor is that Hong Kong practices common law.
So one key thing about the common law system is that it's more flexible based on the decision of the judge of the court, how they interpret the law, instead of more centralized, having the government to set what can be done, what cannot be done.
It therefore gives more protection to small investors and creditors. But the most important factor is its rule of law and independent judiciary. Unlike in mainland China, Hong Kong judges' decisions are not influenced by political factors. But growing concern of Beijing's erosion on the rule of law is one reason that triggered this year's protest. The demonstrations first erupted in June to oppose a bill that would allow extradition to China. The bill is now withdrawn, but the concerns aren't going away. Earlier this month, Hong Kong police froze a fund of about $9 million that supports protesters. The question remains whether Hong Kong's financial activities and any activities can be protected from China's political influence. That protection is what protesters are fighting for. Xu said investors' confidence in Hong Kong will remain.
As long as somehow we can tell the rest of the world that the legal system in Hong Kong will still have an independent court and so on.
Reporting by Frank Fang and Penny Zhou, NTD News.
According to a Wall Street Journal report, the Chinese communist regime gave tens of billions of dollars in financial aid to Huawei, fueling its rise to become a leading telecom company in the global market. The report also raises questions about how independent Huawei actually is from the Chinese regime.
$75 billion. That, according to the Wall Street Journal, is how much state support Chinese telecom giant Huawei received from the Chinese regime. The biggest part of the state support, about $46 billion, comes from loans, credit lines, and other financial assistance. On Thursday, Huawei denied the information in the Wall Street Journal report was true. While state assistance to companies is common in many countries, the scale of support that Huawei received is unusual compared to its competitors. Huawei's official grants were 17 times as large as similar subsidies to its competitors from 2014 to 2018. This allowed the company to get a leg up on its rivals, likely allowing it to become the telecom giant it is today. Huawei says it operates in over 170 countries and serves more than 3 billion customers. The generous state support has fueled suspicions that Huawei is an extension of the Chinese Communist Party.
What's the relationship between Huawei and the Communist Party of China?
Well, it's the same relationship that any other company has that's from China, and that is the Chinese Communist Party has total control over the country, which means they have total control over the company.
U.S. officials have increasingly spoken out about the risk of using Huawei for key infrastructure such as artificial intelligence and 5G. In May, President Donald Trump put Huawei on the U.S. trade blacklist, citing security concerns.
It is a security risk, in my opinion, in our opinion. We're building it, and we've started, but we're not using Huawei.
The U.S. has also been lobbying allies to ban Huawei from their 5G networks.
And coming up next, a painter turned violin maker talks about his journey. He and his wife have made over 700 instruments. More on that after the break.
Factual,
honest news.
Not biased, but completely straightforward.
You're not emotionally going up and down.
Bringing morality back to newspapers.
The honest, old-fashioned journalism.
You're presenting the facts and letting the reader decide.
The Epoch Times is a fearlessly independent news media that publishes in 35 countries and 21 languages. Truth and tradition is our motto. Founded as an antidote to communist propaganda, today we're quickly becoming a household name across America. Our subscribers thank us for our relentless and unbiased coverage.
I've been part of the Epoch Times for nearly a decade because I've seen there's no other major media outlet in the world as devoted to real journalism. The Epoch Times has never had any corporate or political agenda. We only serve our readers, and we'll stay that way, no matter what.
We connected the dots around Spygate, the Obama administration's elaborate efforts against Trump's 2016 campaign. We often break news months ahead of other media on topics such as Chinese espionage, cyber warfare, subversion in America, and more. But our authoritative reporting didn't only just begin. We are tried and true.
Our paper was born out of the need to respond to a human rights catastrophe in China. It was enabled by the Communist Party's vicious and dishonest propaganda. We soon learned that Western media were picking up and amplifying the lies. The Epoch Times' truthful reporting exposed the Communist Party's lies for the Chinese people. But it also helped protect our Western audience. It disabused for them the lies in this propaganda. Our reporting has also helped uncover how communist ideas are taking root in our own country. The Epoch Times started as a small and unknown publication in one of the toughest media markets in the world. We have built it through hard work and trial and error.
We were founded in the year 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia, by Chinese Americans who had fled communist China. Our independent reporting came at a price. Our staff members in China were jailed and tortured for their reporting, some for as long as 10 years. Because our founders believed in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, the principles of the spiritual practice Falun Gong, they felt such sacrifices were worth it to ensure for the world an independent, honest media, one that would report on the most pressing issues of our time. As many major media are losing people's trust and declining further every day, the fastest growing newspaper in America, delivers truth and tradition. Look us up today.
The 2010s was a lost decade for shares of U.S. energy companies overall. Volatile commodity prices, growing supply, and poor financial performance all contributed to the energy sector's transformation from investor darling to investor outcast.
U.S. crude prices fell more than 20% during the 2010s, while the rise of alternative energy also brought pressure. Some stock buyers shunned fossil fuel investments as socially irresponsible. But with the dawn of a new decade, some investors say the sun is also rising on energy shares. Energy represents less than 5% of the weight of the overall S&P 500, down from over 15% in mid-2008. The energy sector's poor performance means its importance to the stock market has withered away. Even so, the decade was transformational for the oil and gas industry, which flocked to booming fields in West Texas and North Dakota. As 2020 arrives, some investors believe the energy sector will leave its struggles behind.
To fulfill the wish of a loved one, a Macedonian painter tried his hand at a challenging project. It ended up changing the path of his life.
He never thought he'd be handcrafting violins one day.
Painting was my main profession, and I had not been considering any other direction. The need to build violins arose when my son, then 7 or 8 years old, showed a great talent as a violinist.
He felt he had to create opportunities for his son to grow that talent.
The first condition was having a good instrument, which I couldn't afford.
So he made one from scratch by himself. More than 30 years later, Bogdanovsky's son is a professional musician, and he is still making violins, now to international acclaim. Macedonian violin virtuoso Eva Bogoevska owns one of his instruments, a copy of a 1731 Guarneri.
I first performed for the world with it in 2012 as our country's representative at the music festival in Sanremo, where I won.
Over the years, Bogdanovsky and his wife have made more than 700 instruments, including copies of instruments by famed violin makers such as Stradivarius or Guarneri. Some of these instruments cost tens of thousands of dollars. He says that no two instruments are exactly alike. They differ from each other, just as people do.
And coming up next, Christmas might be over, but one of New York's best holiday light displays will get you right back in the holiday spirit. More on that after the break. Bienvenido Fuishan August Fuivasa.
Feliz Año Nuevo. Que este nuevo año tenga mucha felicidad y prosperidad para todos.
Så vill jag önska er alla ett riktigt gott nytt år.
Bonne année 2020 à tous et à toutes. Une année remplie de bonheur, de prospérité et de santé.
Chào các bạn. Chúc mừng năm mới, an khang thịnh vượng, vạn sự như ý.
आप सबको नववर्ष की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं.
سال نو را به همه تبریک میگم و امیدوارم که سال خوب و خوشی dاشته bashim.
Vă doresc un an fericit cu multe împliniri și liniște slutească. La mulți ani.
Buon anno nuovo, che i bei momenti di queste giornate possano diventare dei bei ricordi per il futuro. Buone feste a tutti.
新年快乐，祝大家万事如意.
אני מאחל לכם שנה טובה.
신혼이 민투르기 2020 онда амар амгалан амжилт бүтээлээр дүүрэн байх болтугай гэж хүсэн ярив.
祝大家新年快乐，心想事成，万事如意.
Yeni yılınız kutlu olsun. 2020 yılı sağlık, mutluluk ve huzur dolu olsun.
새해 복 많이 받으시고 가족 모두 행복하세요.
明けましておめでとうございます.
Frohes neues Jahr, viel Erfolg und Gesundheit im neuen Jahr.
Season's greetings. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season and I wish you a bright new year ahead.
Even though Christmas Day is past, one New York City neighborhood is still embracing the holiday season. NTD's Juliet Song has the details on one of New York's most famous holiday light displays.
Live band, ornate lights, and giant figures. Known as one of New York's best winter attractions, Dyker Heights is the perfect place to get yourself into the holiday spirit. People flock to this neighborhood to see dazzling displays with family and furry friends.
It's a good experience for them to socialize, and they really like the lights, and they love the attention.
They like getting in the Christmas spirit.
The neighborhood's festive tradition is said to date back to the 1980s. The Spada House is often credited with starting the annual displays. Some homeowners do their own decorations, but most displays here are done by professional decorating companies. The cost varies, with the most expensive ones costing up to $20,000. According to freetoursbyfoot.com, visitors can enjoy the displays on foot, in cars, or on tour buses. Some of the best lights are only visible on weekends. The best time to visit the light show is between 5 and 9 p.m., as most homeowners turn off their displays before they go to bed. Juliet Song and Henry On, NTD News, New York.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.